Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet. This review covers the re-release of Revell's 1/25th scale Black Widow 57 Chevy race car. This kit has seen multiple releases over the years, and parts have been used in other kits. The chassis here is dated 1997, and it's rated a skill level 5 for advanced builders and requires glue and paint. You get 151 pieces molded in white, chrome, clear, and clear red. There's vinyl tires and an all-new set of water slide decals. The instructions are typical Revell book style, and they're well laid out with paint and decal pictorial callouts. The kit is listed as a 2-in-1, as you get the ability to paint and decal your car as stock as a 150 Chevy, and the motor and exhaust is there, but the back seat is missing for a full 150 sedan. So overall fit and finish is very good, and the build process is typical and well detailed with a motor, chassis, and a basic race interior. The body has a few minor mold lines, and decal options allow for 3 different car numbers, but no sponsor decals. The dimensions when done: 7 15/16 long, 2 7/8 inches wide, and 2 3/8 inches high. Here are the contents of this kit. Some people would call this an open box review. They'd pick up every part and sprue and try and come up with some words to describe them, but that won't help you get the kit built, will it? So here's your open box review in 10 seconds or less. Now, just so you know, we'll be using Model Master liquid cement for most of the assembly, but sometimes we'll call out for super glue or white glue for clear parts. And for paints, it's Model Master bottle paints shot through an airbrush most of the time, or rattle can paints for things like primers. Here are the decals for this kit, and as you can see, the color is good and the registry is excellent. You've got 3 different number choices for your model, and there's some extra accent decals there as well. Now, just so that you know, we want you to remember to use the manufacturer's safety suggestions for any of the products that you see used here, just for your own safety. This kit comes with 2 motors, a racing version and a stock version. If you're building a race car, just use everything listed in the instructions for Kit A for the model's engine. And if you're building the stock car, use everything for option B. Now note the stock motor parts for B here, and set anything aside for the version you're not building. So I'm building A, and I'll set all the parts for B aside. Gather up all the parts that you're going to need to build the engine, and I'm going to make the racing engine, so these are what they call option A. So assemble the block, the oil pan, the heads, the valve covers, timing cover, water pump, and paint that block Chevy orange with an aluminum transmission. The belt is rubber colored with black pulleys, and the fan is semi-gloss black too. The generator is silver with a steel mount, and the oil filter is white. The exhaust manifolds are steel color, and the starter is black with gold solenoid. The distributor is tan and steel, and the coil is black. Now assemble the motor once all the parts are dry, and then add the chrome intake into place. Use a wash of thinned flat black paint on the fins of the fuel injectors to highlight those. Now we're going to prepare the chassis for assembly, and note the green circles there highlighting these text, script, trademarks, etc. You may want to remove those with a blade and some sandpaper for a nice smooth finish. Then add the gas tank pan to the chassis. Add the springs and lower suspension into place, and flip it over to add the upper A-arms. Now note that the front frame horns can be clipped off at the red marks, and add the steering gear that you need for your version. Paint the chassis flat black with a gloss black frame and steel gas tank. And note the instructions do not show the straight exhaust at all, so use that exhaust for the race car. Now locate the motor onto the motor mounts and line it up with the exhaust pipes that are already in place there. As you can see, she's starting to come together already. Add a little detailing to the chassis, and you've got a real nice looking model going. Get these parts out of the kit for the rear suspension, and then Assemble those pieces and paint it a gloss black. And the drive shaft is gray. The shocks are yellow or your favorite brand's color. And then install the drive shaft with the suspension and the shocks into place. We'll work on the wheel assemblies next, so gather up these parts and paint the rims the color you decide to make your car. To give the tires a street-worn look, or a track look, press and roll the tread on a sheet of fine sandpaper about a 220 grit to kind of rough and scuff up the tread area. The front rims have a hub and the rear rims have a flat opening. Highlight the lugs and hubs and the opening, and then insert a rim back and front onto each tire. Now the hubcap is for stock use only. The lower half of the vehicle is coming together nicely, and at this point you're going to want to snap a tire onto each axle pin. So make sure to put the front tires on the front and the back ones on the back. The chassis is now completed, and at this point you'll have a rolling chassis on which to build the rest of your model. As you can see, the stance looks good and she's coming together nicely. Get these parts together and we'll assemble the interior section by putting together the seat. Now there's two holes to drill out of the floor for the roll bar. So the underside of the floor is flat black, of course, and decide the color of your interior. So then paint the interior of the floor that color and paint the roll bar parts. Now the seat and the door panels need to be painted your interior color, and then add the decal to the seat and the door panels and highlight the handles on the panels with some silver. Now install the roll bar, the seat, and the door panels to the floor. Pull these pieces out of the kit now and we'll work on the dash. Paint the dashboard, the column, and the wheel to match the door panels and the seat. Then decal and detail the dash and assemble the column and the wheel. Then install that into the interior tub in the slots provided. Now add the tachometer for the race car only. Gather up these parts for the body to prepare them for paint. First, wet sand all the parts with a 800 to 1000 grit wet or dry sandpaper to remove all the mold lines and blemishes that you can find. There are some parting lines on this model, so you'll need to pay some extra attention to smooth those out properly. Use a good quality primer, an etching primer, and coat the inside and the outside of the car to spot any errors that the wet sanding didn't pick up first time. Then once the primer is dry, wet sand it again and fix and repair any as needed using your favorite filler. I wanted to make a two-tone paint for this car, so I painted the first color on the part that I wanted as a silver metallic. I then taped off the part I wanted to remain that color and carefully sanded the remaining to smooth out any areas and prepare it for the second color. I then sprayed the second color onto the car and let it cure and carefully removed all the tape. And this left me with a two-tone red and silver paint job, which is a special that I can now decal and finish. You've got some pretty large decals for this kit, and although they're not very complicated, I really suggest that you use some of the decal setting solutions available on the market to make sure that it conforms to any of the contours and sticks well to the body. Use plenty of warm water to place your decals and then smooth them out, getting out any trapped air bubbles. Once it has set and dried overnight, give the body a clear coat to seal those decals into place. Additionally, for some highlight, and although the B150 model did not have very much chrome trim, it was a no-frills model, it still had a little bit of trim on it. So I used the new Molotow chrome pen to supply the chrome finish for some of the bright work on the body. Gather up the window glass pieces, and I find that dipping these in future floor polish by pledge is an excellent way to make them look thinner and crisper and clearer. Once you wick off the excess and let it dry, it really makes the windows look better. Place the body upside down on a soft surface and then use some white glue to install the windows into the cab area. Get out the firewall and the master cylinder here, and then paint the master cylinder steel color and install that onto the firewall, and then place the firewall onto the interior. Use some super glue or epoxy on the mounting pins here and install the interior tub into the body on the mounting pins shown here in the red arrows. Now we can place the interior into the chassis or onto the chassis, and it is carefully done by spreading the sides of the body, and it fits snugly into place by dropping it in past the wheel wells and just leaving it in position. It should fit there nicely. Now gather these parts and paint the battery, horns, radiator, and radiator on the wall there flat black. Then the intake vent is flat black, and the radiator hoses are a rubber color. The radiator wall is then assembled with the radiator and the horns, and then add the lower hose and install it into the car, adding the lower hose to the motor. Then install the upper hose. Now assemble the cooler unit and install the vent and the cooler unit. To simulate one of the early racers, I used only the driver's door handle for this model. So assemble the hood, trim, and install the hood, and then use a wash of thinner and flat black on the grill to mark the recesses. And the marker lights are then clear orange. Now add the clear lights into the grill and install the grill. Now install the headlight blanks into the bezels and add the bezels to the headlight nacelles and the body. Now at the rear of the vehicle, we'll be working with these pieces. So go ahead and install the tail lights into the bezels there, and you'll either use the stock or the clear ones. I think the clear ones might need to be painted red if you use those with some of that transparent red paint. So install the trim on the fin there and the brake lights, and install the backup light filler and install the bumper. Then add the V-trim to the trunk deck. So whichever version you build, you're happily going to have some extra parts left over, including mostly complete motor for your parts stash. So put those away for another day. So there you have it. I've always liked this build, and Revell keeps making it look fresh and appealing for the next generation run. It's still nice and clean and crisp and has very little flash and some minor mold lines. The decals are better and have more options now, but there's always aftermarket sources for your sponsor decals. The fit and finish for the model is tight. In fact, I dropped it and nothing broke. It's pretty solid, so it's a well-designed model. Now the chassis is well detailed, and with just some wiring, it would look great. The interior is a race car version, nothing there but a seat and a dash, and just like it was back in the day. The body is straight and clean. The detail is crisp and fairly mold line free, except for one across the trunk area that's a little heavy and needs some extra work. But otherwise, no big deal. Nothing really stands out as a detriment to building this kit. The chrome on the kit looks great, and it's a really nice builder for your shelf. Go ahead and put one there, and you'll have a good time putting this one together. We hope you enjoyed this step-by-step premium model kit review, and so that you don't miss any more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. As always, you can find us at our website, www.rideonreplicas.com, or on Facebook too. So look us up and look 'em over.